it was put to me this morning that Wentworth could be back in play for the Liberals, 16% Jewish community, and that is now, the priority for that part of the population. Only 16% of the community, but it frames things. I mean, I've not seen a Labor leader this strong on law and order like Chris Minns, and Anthony Albanese on the anti-Semitism issue looks like a bit of a passenger, doesn't he?
Well, Bob Karr used to say, I want to cement them in their jails. So I have seen a Labor leader as strong on law and order as Chris Minns, and they all kind of learned from him.
It's been a while.
And Albanese would have seen Bob Karr from a distance out of Canberra, and he should be, following that playbook, really. And he's starting to get more into that space, but it's not a comfortable zone. And I do think there's something to the opposition criticism. They've been concerned about alienating the Middle Eastern sort of communities of Western Sydney and concerned about votes. And because of that, they haven't acted with the normal instinct you should in these situations. And, even this Anthony Albanese, even earlier this week before this childcare bombing, was sort of saying, oh, that's a state matter, which people were saying to me, that's an I don't hold a hose moment. Yeah. So, real danger signs. And isn't it interesting, every summer, something gets thrown up, whether it's bushfires or floods. On this occasion, Anthony Albanese's actually been on duty. He only took a week or two off, I think maybe even a week, and he started campaigning early. He has an issue sometimes with pivoting, and I think the last couple of days he's done better. But, by the time the campaign rolls around, in what's shaping as such a tight contest, he needs to make every post a winner. And, again, this has been a reminder to him this month, I think, that he could have been stronger on this. And they've got a weakness there on the law and order front. And we saw that Fin Review poll where climate change dropped off as a top 5 issue. Right. Law and order came up. In terms of Wentworth, though, of those 16%, I see your point. Allegra Spender's pretty popular. How many of those 16% voted Liberal in the first place? So how many people are you winning back? Yeah, that's going to be the issue with that. But I think that's right in terms of that seat. In terms of other seats, how much has the cost of living replaced climate change as a concern for people? And so that's the continual thing that goes on both in American politics and Australian politics. Is, people worry about climate change and they worry about power bills. And we're on the power bill cycle, and that spells danger for Anthony Albanese, because if a lot of people are sort of saying, what do these guys stand for? That's one thing they actually do stand for, and it's probably not the right time of the cycle to be standing for renewable energy and whatnot. Yeah,
and I think it is all starting to be a bit clearer to people. It has been, a fair bit of opacity in the energy debate, and people believing, renewables are cheaper. Well, renewables will eventually be cheaper, but they're not cheaper now. So it's the sacrifices people need to make to get to that net zero, and the amount they're going to have to pay in the meantime. And that is all starting to be really obvious to people. So I think there's a bit of a miscue on the Labor side. I don't think they're framing Peter Dutton very well. They keep on, referring to him as a monster, he's divisive, he's all that kind of stuff, and they haven't really adapted that argument. I don't know whether it's working that much. Yeah, sure, with the Labor base, but what about those, swing voters in between? The other thing is on energy and cost of living. That message is not working. It's not been adapted for a cost of living crisis.
Well, the Dutton thing, they're aiming at women, it seems to me.
Yeah.
And it probably has some pickup there.
Yep.
That's the point I'd make about that. But obviously, from the numbers, it hasn't had the effect that it could have had. If you look at what's happened to prices and interest rates in the past 18 months, and any government was in that situation and they were 49.51, that's actually a pretty good position. I know that sounds counterintuitive because when people see me and meet me at various events or on the street or whatever, they say, Albanese's stuffed, isn't he? But I don't think he is. He's certainly stuffed in terms of getting a majority government, I reckon. But can he get to minority government? Yes, because it's 49.51. Now, of course, that can move in the next... And the other thing is there going to be an interest rate cut in February?
Yeah.
That's pretty critical to the whole equation,
Yeah.
And Michelle Bullock...
tariffs affect that?
Well... Yeah, it's a very good point, but they're not on us yet.
No.
So the decision would be taken without that in play, you would suspect.
Yeah, there's a lot in play at the beginning of this election year as well. I take your point about, you know, Anthony Albanese getting there but in minority, but we're looking at the numbers like that, and I think you're absolutely right. But then when people look to vote for Labor and they go, actually, a vote for Labor is going to be a Green Labor government because he won't be able to get over the line, does that in and of itself shift votes?
Can.
Yeah.
But I've come to the conclusion over the summer break, I spent some time in Western Australia, that Labor's position isn't that bad in Western Australia. And that's where Dutton ordinarily would be looking to win 4 or 5 seats back.
They're going to romp it home at a state level. Or surely that will have a bit of benefit
they've got at the state level, they've got $1 billion surplus. They've offered public transport free to everyone over the holidays. So not like Queensland where it looks desperate. They've got the surplus as well. And property prices, unlike the rest of the country, have just gone up 30% there. Now, rents have gone up too. My point on that is this. I think you can look easily at Labor losing 4 seats in New South Wales.
Yeah.
1 or 2 others in Queensland, South Australia, Tasmania. 2, maybe 1 in WA. So that still leaves Albanese at 70. So what's the key state in this election? Victoria. Victoria is the key in this election, and the Liberals are buoyant about their chances in Victoria. And how will Peter Dutton go in Victoria? Well, the suggestion is Jacinta Allen's on the nose. That you'll see a lot of visits to Melbourne in this election campaign from both leaders.
Yeah, interesting indeed. Andrew, welcome back. Great to see you. It's going to be quite a year.